This project was a bit unexpected. It emerged a bit organically. And the most important thing that it taught me was to, when I read scientific research, look at the details in detail. And that one change in my reading habits came from studying all of these self-organized reviews of research that I found on social media, personal websites, academic forums, and other digital communities. And we can call these digital communities peer production communities, because that's where users or peers are democratically co-creating something. The opposite to that would be what we all know and love, formal or traditional peer review. And that happens when journal publishers and conference proceeding organizers use some top-down control to find volunteer reviewers. This process, is formal, private, and loosely structured, with some broad prompts like how rigorous is the submission, how clear is the submission, and things like that. But today, I want to explore the exact opposite of that approach by looking at non-traditional self-organized reviews. And for that, we need to go to X or Twitter. So here, what we see is a scholar who has found an example of a paper in a peer-reviewed radiology journal, so a medical journal. And this paper is problematic because part of the paper states, quote, "I'm very sorry, but I don't have real-time information or patient-specific data as I am an AI language model." So that to me indicates that the authors published text written by something like, ChatGPT, let's say. And this was not the only scholar who found this. There were dozens of other scholars across social media platforms who also suspected this paper used AI-assisted writing. And all of these discussions were nicely synthesized on this academic forum, PubPeer, maybe you've heard of it, where each publication has its own page, and users, anyone, can comment on that work, positively or negatively, usually negatively. In a few days, this one page for this one radiology paper received 17 posts from 7 separate users, including one study author who claimed that, quote, "After I conducted a personal examination of all of the contents of the AI paper, it turns out that it passes as human. The truth is what I told you." But other users quickly raised other signs of plagiarism. And after a few weeks, actually after just about 6 or so weeks, the journal retracted the paper. There it is. But not for violating its AI policy. They retracted it for failing to obtain informed consent from patients. So a much more serious issue. And this is just one example from a zoo of other impactful self-organized reviews that I've collected over the past semester. And I can find examples like these, serious, trivial, everything in between, within an hour or two of looking across platforms any day of the week. Now, to be clear, not all self-organized reviews are this serious and impactful. They don't all lead to retractions. And they vary a lot in their depth, style, content, and impact. But overall, the system, the practice of self-organized reviews looks a whole lot like this. So what we have here is, publishers on the left. We've got peer production communities in the middle. And in these peer production communities, volunteers are contributing unique information at their own time and pace. And all of this is a network, so that information is coming in from one side of the system. It's going to social media platforms like X. It's being posted on PubPeer. It's going back to journals. And there are a variety of different journeys that the data can take, but this is just one path that I would like to highlight right now. What I really want us to do is zoom out and look across the whole socio-technical systems, all the people, all the communities, all the platforms, all the practices, and find ways to highlight this less visible labor, this less visible scholarly production. And we need to figure out ways that this is working correctly. How to make sense of this? How is it correcting the scientific record? We'll have to learn to see things from, I think, the bottom up instead of the top down, from the people and the posts that are occurring online instead of just the top-down publishing model. So I really want to invert our perception. And my argument here is that what we'll find is that self-organized peer review, which is bottom-up, informal, public, is a very worthy supplement to more traditional peer review. So I formalized 3 research questions, which I'll read right now. 1, who are these self-organized reviewers and where they're working? We don't know. 2, how do self-organized reviewers evaluate research? So this is something very interesting to me. What are their processes? What are they uniquely contributing? And 3, what are the actual impacts of self-organized reviews? I want to collect all of these into one data set. So I've got a multi-method study that I'm planning right now. It's kind of partly done, partly IRB waiting. So this involves doing a content analysis, which is the key part of the study, in which I'll use convenience and purposive sampling to find examples of self-organized reviews across a variety of peer production communities, social media, preprint servers, different wikis, and this will all be its own separate paper. Now, in parallel, what I also want to do is this digital ethnography, where I go into these virtual communities, I talk to people, and then I'll converse with them and join them in these activities. And all of this will be producing more and more insights to establish better ways of scaffolding structured peer review, traditional peer review. And what I think we'll find is that when it comes to evaluating credibility, creativity, connectivity, clarity, we'll have more specific advice than we might find in, for example, CHI reviewing guidelines, CSCW reviewing guidelines, things like that. So I'm all out of time, but if you want to talk to me about this, we can do so after during the break. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abhinav, and I'm here to talk about ways to help authors in marking up text for accessibility. Before going forward, I'd like to recognize and thank my fantastic collaborators, Dr. Jonathan Lazar, Dr. Garrett Tigwell, and from Adobe, Rajiv Alexa, MJ and Yalpi. So a huge majority of web pages and documents are inaccessible to people with disabilities. Right? The reason for this is because most tools either make it really difficult or they don't allow folks like you and me to edit documents for accessibility issues. Right? Look at these numbers. 97%. 97% is a score my parents wish they saw on my high school board exam certificate instead of 2%. So we need to identify ways to mark up content during the process of content authoring. Right? Some of our prior work in this field has involved the development of a couple of tools for applying markup to headings, reading order, tables, alt text, and forms. But both of these tools were remediation tools. We want documents to be accessible as soon as they're created. Right? So I'm essentially talking about incorporating a born accessible approach. So folks must have heard people talking about, Dr. Lazar talking about the 4 goals of the born accessible model. Set clear accessibility goals from the beginning of a project. Include people with disabilities early on in the design process. Code to accessibility standards. And number 4, involve people with disabilities in your user evaluations. So keeping these goals in mind, we started a collaboration with Adobe on one of their latest products for design authoring. It's called Express. So we formulated some ideas to incentivize authors. Right? How can we incentivize authors to add accessibility markup to their documents? Like what kind of messaging, what kind of carrots can we provide them? What kind of rewards can we give to authors trying to add markup? We identified 4 stages of the authoring process, starting with selecting a template, followed by content development, and then auto tagging, and then typically anyone would just convert and export a document, share. Right? So in this talk, we're going to be talking about 3 interventions, like headings, alt text, and lists. Right? So in developing our ideas for these interventions, we conducted listening sessions with some of the major disability rights groups, NAD, NFB, and we identified 11 major takeaways in our discussions with them. I've listed just around 6 here, so you can judge me for my counting skills. So we found we want accessibility supports to be enabled opt-out by default. Right? You should communicate the why in the messaging and also have keyboard shortcuts. For example, right, if under certain conditions an author is trying to increase the font size of a single line of text, right, then it is quite possibly a heading. Right? This is a low fidelity idea. A higher fidelity idea of the same thing would look like this in Adobe Express. Similarly, for images, if an image is uploaded onto a document, an alt text caption can be automatically generated. Right? But look at the messaging here. Adding an alt text caption would make your content accessible for up to 25% more users. Isn't that kind of sweet? And why? Because alt text captions are especially useful for blind and low vision users. Lastly, for lists, Express can automatically tag bulleted lists. Right? Confirm this to be a list, then 30% more users will be able to access this content. So in summary, we have developed some low and medium fidelity designs. We've conducted very valuable listening sessions with the disability rights groups. And right now we are in the process of designing a user study with the Express team. Right? So going forward, what we want to do is continue on this path. We want to increase the level of interactivity in our mockups. We want to continue our listening sessions with the disability rights groups, obtain their valuable insights so that we can conduct a user study and better inform the design in the Express product. So yeah, those are some steps for creating more accessible content going forward. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi everyone, I'm Khandaka Tasnim Swat. I'm a PhD student in College of Information Studies working with Dr. Giovanni Luca Champaia. Today I'm going to talk about gender gap in Wikipedia. In 2018, Donna Strickland, Arthur Ashkin, and Gerard Moreau won the Nobel Prize in Physics. Notably, Donna became the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in 55 years since 1963. When the announcement was made, Donna did not have a Wikipedia page, unlike her male colleagues who had their Wikipedia page since 2005. An attempt to create her page was declined because the editors in Wikipedia did not consider her notable enough to be included in Wikipedia. It was only after winning the Nobel Prize that Donna's page appeared on Wikipedia for the first time. This situation shows how women's contributions are more often undervalued and face hurdles to be included in Wikipedia, which is one of the largest online encyclopedia. Despite aiming to cover all human knowledge, Wikipedia has a significant gender gap, with only 19% of its biographies featuring women. This imbalance can reinforce societal gender biases. Many notable women are not only missing from Wikipedia, but they are also deleted. The deletion decision is taken in a collective deliberative way in an editorial platform called Article for Deletion. This platform decides if an article stays on Wikipedia or not based on how much substantial coverage a subject has in external eligible sources. Prior studies show that the women's biographies are more often considered for deletion, even though their significant achievements are well documented in reputable news and print media. However, it is still unknown how quickly those biographies are nominated for deletion during editing. Since the notability of subjects or biographies is assessed throughout the editorial process, any articles can be considered for deletion at any stage of development. As articles are continually developed, early nominations for deletion shorten the window for further improvement. Also, in recent years, a number of feminist movements by editors have increased the number of women's biography in Wikipedia. But new articles often face higher scrutiny and a greater risk of deletion. Therefore, our main research question is, are the biographies of women prematurely evaluated for deletion? To answer to this question, we have collected 1.9 million biographies that was published on Wikipedia in 2001 to 2023. We also have collected the list of biographies that got nominated for deletion And using the survival function, we estimated the probability of survival from the nomination for deletion. And we have found that this probability is lower for the biographies of women than those of men. Our following research question was, other than gender, are there any factors that play a role on the risk of deletion consideration? This time we used a regression model, which is known as the Cox proportional hazard model. And as covariates besides gender, we considered Wikipedia age to capture the evolution of Wikipedia, if the evolution of Wikipedia put impact on the risk of deletion consideration. We also consider biographical status of contemporary figures, because the debate about the living individuals are very challenging due to the reliability concern, and also there is a need to protect the reputation of the living individuals. Also, we consider another factor, whether a person is historical figure or not, because Wikipedia editors favors contemporary figures over the historical figure. And also it is very challenging to gather information about the historical figure. From this model, we found that gender play huge role on increasing the risk of deletion consideration out of all the factors. We also examine how the gender can play a role across different contexts, across the different biographical status. That is why we examine the regression model by using interaction between gender and the biographical status. And you can see across all the groups, female figures have the lower probability of survival from the nominated for deletion. And interestingly, you can see the historical female figures have the lower probability of survival than the contemporary deceased male figures. And we also found that contemporary living women figures have the highest risk of deletion consideration. In summary, our research shows that the women's contributions are more likely to be questioned very early in the deletion process compared to men. This means women have the fewer chance to improve their presence in Wikipedia, and it creates challenges of preserving the stories and contributions of women on Wikipedia. Also, the underrepresentation of women in historical and contemporary records can shape the perception of lower notability of women that leads to prematurely judge the women's merit to be included in Wikipedia in deletion process. Thanks to all to listening to my talk. I can talk about my ongoing research in details in the poster session.